Minister for Justice Jim O'Callaghan is speaking about deportations over the last few days. He's had quite a busy week. He's been commenting on the events that happened in Dublin last week when 4 people were slashed by a Brazilian who was here for years and had been out on bail. He was done for drug charges. Then he went on the rampage last week and attacked some people, some of them on their own doorsteps. And initially, when O'Callaghan was questioned about this or asked to comment about this, he said, well, I think he may have been known to the guards in the past. I think maybe, possibly. Of course, it turned out that he was. There's no way that guy hadn't been briefed on exactly what was happening. So one thing that I'm seeing from O'Callaghan, especially over the last few days, is he can't really give a straight answer. So he's being asked about deportations, the fact that there's a lot of people in Ireland illegally that should not be here and they need to be kicked out ASAP because they're here illegally. It's not rocket science. If you're doing something illegally, you should face a penalty for it, or you should be jailed for it, or you should be kicked out of the country for it. So if you're here illegally, you need to go. That's not racist, right-wing, extremist, or xenophobic. It's called the law. And people like to see the law apply to everybody. We would like to think it applies to those that are here illegally, as well as those people that live here legally. So let's see what O'Callaghan's been saying. And of course, there's been a little bit of kickback in this already by people that could potentially be losing funding off of the back of it. Minister for Justice Jim O'Callaghan signals. Now note the language here. He signals a tougher line on immigration and increased deportation. Remember, politicians, talk is cheap. What about action? So he's signalling a tougher line on immigrations and deportations. And looking at him, he doesn't look like he's a tough guy. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but when you look at Micheál Martin, you can judge that book by its cover. When you look at Simon Harris, you can judge that book by its cover. And when you look at Jim O'Callaghan, I think you can judge that book by its cover too. Efforts needed to reduce the number of people applying for international protection, says O'Callaghan. And that was him speaking yesterday at the first of 6 ceremonies, seeing 5,000 people awarded Irish citizenship in Dublin. So one of his first media engagements, he signalled a tougher stance on immigration and deportations. It's a really dirty word. Kicking people out of the country. What about the open doors? What about the red carpets being rolled out? It doesn't look so good when you're putting people on the planes and sending them out of the country, but that's what needs to be done if they're here illegally. I think, here we have it again, is fluffy language. I think we're going to see more deportation orders issued this year. No country can adopt a relaxed or casual attitude to its borders and migration. Well, that's exactly what Ireland has done. And the UK, and France, and Spain, and so many countries, they say we can't do this, but yet they go ahead and do it. It's a security issue as well as being a rights issue, said O'Callaghan. That's an area where I think, notice he says, I think twice, not I will. Can't commit to it. I think we're going to see more deportation orders this year. That's an area where I think I'm going to focus on. Either you are or you aren't. Come on, man. Just give us a clear statement on this, or is he afraid of being pulled up on it later on in the year when maybe absolutely nothing has actually been done? That's an area I think I'm going to focus on. And here we go again. I think Niall Collins, Minister of State at the Department of Justice, is going to help. And indeed, Minister of State for Migration, Colm Brophy, as well. 3 times in one statement, he says, I think, not I will see more deportation orders. I will focus on it this year. I will work with Niall Collins. No, I think. Not good enough. Either do it or don't. Commit to it or don't. None of this wishy-washy, namby-pamby sitting on the fence-sitting statements from O'Callaghan. And of course, there's a reaction to this from Doras. Deportation from international protection system needs. National security should not be conflated with the issues of migration, says the CEO of Doras John Lannon talks of increased deportations are a distraction from the need to ensure there's a fair and accessible international protection system in place. It's not a distraction. If people are here illegally, they need to go. Who's paying to keep them? Who's supporting them? What accommodation are they taking up? What spaces are they taking up in accommodation that could be used for Irish people that are homeless? It's not a distraction. It's a reality. We've actually got an international protection system. It can be quite difficult to people to present and to pass through that. Not really. Check out the guy who was on the rampage last Sunday in Dublin. He didn't seem to have a problem. And of course, the press have spun that round that he's not actually an international protection applicant. Doesn't tell that to the people that he attacked. There's a photograph there, people standing by rows of tents near the IPO in Dublin last April. Refugees are not a threat. Really? No, not all of them are. Of course not. But when you look at the amount of crime that has been committed by people that are here illegally, they're trying to brush over it. Mr. Lannon rejected that a lack of deportations would be a draw for illegal immigrants to come to Ireland. It's called a deterrent. Deterrent, if someone thinks that they're coming here illegally, and I keep stressing the word illegally, that they can simply remain whether or not they enter legally or not, well then of course they're going to come. But if they think they make it all the way over here and then they have to turn and get kicked out straight away, it will act as a deterrent. This is a pattern that we're seeing right across the European Union, indeed implying that there is a link between migration and security. He says it's interesting the way a lot of figures, governments don't seem to be able to or don't want to release figures relating to crime and perpetrators and nationality. Were they resident? Were they non-resident? Were they nationals? Were they non-nationals? Remember, the truth can withhold scrutiny, but lies cannot. It suggests that migrants are a threat. The language that's being used could be misleading. And again, let me stress this. Not every migrant that comes into the country is a threat. People do come here to work. People do come here to pay tax and earn money and try and make a better life for themselves. That's a separate issue. But to say that there is no threat from people that have entered the country illegally, there's a list the length of your arm that attacks have been carried out by illegals that have come here or came here and been granted asylum and then did absolutely nothing in their entire stint in Ireland, contributed nothing, just took like leeches in some cases. So, suggesting migrants are a threat, Irish people are a threat, English people are a threat, Scots people are a threat, Welsh people are a threat. Some of them are, not all of them. So to simply brush this to the side and saying, well, you shouldn't really look at migrants as a threat, tell that to the people that have been attacked by those that have been here illegally or simply walking the streets. It's happening. It's happened at least twice this week, 3 times, if you include another incident that hasn't been confirmed yet. But anyway, that's what he's saying in regards to this issue. There's a lot of work to be done, according to Mr. Lannon. National security should not be conflated with the issues of migration. We should, of course, ensure that we have national security. Yeah, of course we should. How can you not say that? What are you going to do? Say that we shouldn't have national security? Of course we should. And this is the critical aspect for what the Minister of Justice is responsible for. But this should not be conflated with issues of migration. There's a lot of work to be done in that migrants have contributed very positively to Ireland already. We need to ensure that remains the case. Yes. Mr. Lannon said that we need to understand that public services, hospitals and the hospitality sector are all kept going by having an adequate number of migrants here. Well, that shouldn't be the case. How did Ireland survive before this influx of migrants? How did public services run without an influx of migrants? How did hospitals and hospitality run without an influx of migrants in the past? Were those jobs not taken by Irish people? Maybe some people coming in from overseas, yes. But to say that public services, hospitals and hospitality are kept going, having an adequate number of migrants here, that should not be the case, especially when you consider the amount of young people that are getting out of Ireland at the minute because they can't afford to buy a home, they can't find a home to buy, they can't afford to rent, they're finding it difficult getting a job, the price of everything is up through the roof, and they're leaving. Maybe incentives should be there to keep Irish people on Irish soil and give Irish people Irish jobs in the first instance. And then if there is a shortfall or there is a lack in a certain area and people are able to come here legally and work and earn and pay taxes, then maybe we can look at this. But to say that those sectors are propped up, they need an adequate amount of migrants. Let me ask you the question, what about 50 years ago? They didn't need it then. Or 40 years ago, or 30 years ago, or maybe even 20 years ago. But why in the last 20, 10 and 0 years has this become the case? O'Callaghan's talking about it. He's saying he's thinking about it. Let's see if he does anything about it. I'm Rick Munn, No Risk, No Reward Media, over and out.